Jill and the Fall Church Bake Sale. Mrs. Crocker was placed in charge of her church's fall bake sale this year. She asked her daughter Jill to help her out with the grocery list by finding out how many apples they would need to make 100 apple pies for the sale. The recipe made a batch of 9 pies and called for 62 apples. Jill headed off to the farmer's market where the apple farmer told her that his apples were only sold in boxes of 18. Now Jill had all the information she needed, so she made a plan. First, she thought about what she knew. She knew the church needed 100 apple pies and that it took 62 apples to make a batch of 9 pies. She then asked herself, how many apples and how many boxes of apples are needed to make 100 pies? She reminded herself that she could not make part of a batch of pies and that the apples were only sold in full boxes of 18. Jill decided she should break the problem into parts. She started with dividing the total number of pies she needed by how many she could make at a time. This gave her the total number of batches. She would then multiply the number of batches by the number of apples per batch to find the total number of apples needed. Lastly, she would divide this total number of apples by the number of apples in a box to find the number of boxes. Now that she was ready to work out the problem, she first divided 100 by 9. This was the number of pies she needed divided by the number of pies she can make at a time. She got the number 11.11 for the number of batches she would have to make. Because she couldn't bake part of a batch, she rounded this up to 12 total batches. Now she took the 12 batches and multiplied it by the 62 apples it would take per batch and got 744 apples. She then divided 744 total apples by the 18 apples per box and got 41.33. Since she could not buy a part of a box of apples, she rounded this number as well, giving her 42 boxes of apples. This would be the right amount to make 100 apple pies. She decided she should check to make sure because she didn't want to end up getting too many apples or not enough apples for the pies. She remembered learning about inverse operations in math class and decided that this would be a good way to check her work. Since multiplication is the inverse of division, she multiplied 12 batches by 9 pies per batch and got 108 pies. This gave her the 100 pies she would need for the bake sale plus a remainder of 8 pies. This made sense because she had to round up to get a whole number of batches. Then she multiplied 42 boxes of apples by 18 apples per box to get 756 apples. This gave her the 744 needed with the remainder of 12 apples, which would not be enough to buy another box. So Jill bought 42 boxes of apples, and when she returned home with them, Mrs. Crocker was so impressed with her math skills that she let her help bake the pies too.